Welcome to the first episode of a new video interview series by Project Cargo Journal. My name is Tobias Pievers and I am the editor-in-chief. Today we are talking about safety, the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact on the offshore markets with Robert Desel, CEO of heavy lift equipment manufacturer, the Crosby Group. Robert, welcome. Good to have you on the show. How is the situation on your side of the ocean?
Yeah, so things are going okay. I'm in the U.S. We've had a bit of a resurgence of COVID lately, and that's a little bit concerning. But I'm well, our team is well, and we're pushing through this current situation.
So before we start with the interview, can you maybe give a quick overview of what it is the Crosby Group exactly does, and maybe give an indication of your size or market share?
We're the largest manufacturer of rigging, lifting, and securement hardware in the world. We operate about 30 facilities globally and have presence in over 20 countries with either facilities or our teams. We sell primarily through independent distributors, as well as some businesses to OEMs, such as crane manufacturers.
You already mentioned it a little bit, but could you tell a little bit about how the Crosby Group has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, so as a global business, we started seeing this late February, early March. We have a very big presence in Asia, and obviously we felt it there. We felt it there first, and it has affected all of our team members in one way or another, whether it's travel restrictions or an incredible amount of increased safety and security at our plants that have continued to run throughout the crisis. And finally, obviously, as end markets have been impacted, we've seen, some impact to demand from our distributors and from our end users, which is to be expected.
When you look at supply chain matters or supply of products to your customers, what measures have you taken there to ensure that you can deliver products?
Yeah, so one of the advantages Crosby has is we are the most vertically integrated rigging hardware manufacturer in the world. And in this situation, it's particularly important because we basically, at our plants, we bring in raw steel that we purchase locally, and we forge that and finish that to finished hardware. So we don't have a very long and complex supply chain. Basically, what I tell my team and what we talk about is if we can get steel and we have workers, team members, and they want to work, and power, we can basically produce products. So we've been producing pretty much uninterrupted at all of our plants globally, with a few exceptions, more driven by demand than by supply chain issues.
Yeah, and what would you say is currently the main challenge you still have to overcome before you can come back to the so-called normal situation?
Yeah, whatever normal is going to look like in the future. We continue to evolve our safety protocols with respect to COVID. I feel like every day, every week, we're learning something. We're putting new procedures in place. So that is still a challenge. It's probably a little bit less of a challenge than it was a number of weeks ago. I think getting our field support team back on the road out, we spend a lot of time with end users. That's obviously been slowed down quite a bit. So that's a challenge, getting the comfort and the confidence level that we can get people back on the road. Clearly, air travel, certainly in the U.S., is somewhat depressed. So that represents a challenge as well.
So if we rewind a little to, I think, January this year, before we really had to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, Crosby Group had just acquired Feubo, if I pronounce it correctly. Can you tell us what the vision was behind this acquisition?
Yeah, so Feubo is a spectacular company and a spectacular team located in Germany. And they're very much focused on the offshore mooring segment. And while Crosby plays very heavily in offshore oil and gas and offshore heavy lift, the subsea mooring component of the business is never an area that we had been terribly strong at. So Feubo complements that product portfolio. So we now can go literally from the bottom of the seabed up to the top of the crane or the top of the drilling rig with Crosby, Feubo, Gunnebo product all the way through that chain. The other thing that Feubo has, they have a very strong engineering and testing culture. And so in addition to the product portfolio complement, Crosby and Gunnebo have a legacy of very strong engineering. And so they complement that with really an amazing engineering team located in Germany that we will leverage not only in the mooring space, but in other Crosby and Gunnebo product as well.
And this takeover followed shortly after you took over as CEO of the Crosby Group in August. Was this your idea, the takeover, or?
Yeah, I mean, we've done 3 acquisitions in the last year, right? So starting in 2019, the Straight Point in the UK became part of the Crosby Group with their load monitoring technology. The middle of 2019, Gunnebo became part of the family. And then, as you noted, Feubo became part of the family in January. I met the owner of Feubo, probably 2 years ago in Singapore, and we developed a very strong relationship. And I gained a lot of respect for what he had built and the team that he had built. And so the idea of bringing them into the family kind of evolved over time. Based on that personal relationship, and we couldn't be more thrilled with having them and the skills and capabilities that they bring.
So Feubo is focused on the offshore industry, which is currently being hit by another oil crisis.
Sure.
How has that affected your plans for Feubo thus far?
So I think it's pivoted them a little bit. As I said, the mooring product complements a gap that we had in our product line. Obviously, demand for that isn't the same as maybe it was 6 months or a year ago. But the other parts of the logic of bringing them into the family around the engineering, we've actually accelerated some of that. So they're actually manufacturing and machining some Crosby components. So we brought that forward in our integration plan, and we've brought forward some of the engineering work on Crosby product as well. So it hasn't played out exactly the way we thought it would, say, in January, but there's enough value creation opportunity in that business between engineering, machining capability, and the core offshore components, mooring components, that we've been able to resequence things a little bit and still going strong. I think the other part that's kind of complementary is offshore wind and many of the offshore wind installations going into deeper water requiring mooring. So we're seeing maybe, I don't think we've seen a downtrend in demand on oil and gas yet. It's pretty stable. It certainly isn't growing. We're seeing an uptick in demand in the offshore wind and the moorings associated with that. So that's been a little bit of a pleasant surprise as well.
So will you also be refocusing on this market a little bit going forward now that the oil and gas market is slowing down?
We've always played fairly strongly in the offshore kind of transport and installation segment, be that wind or oil and gas. The market is shifting a lot of its investment over to offshore wind. And obviously, because we have such a huge footprint, we see that market growing as well. And, we have some specialized product for that, like our wide body shackles that are particularly good with synthetics that they tend to use a lot when they're lifting the turbine blades. So we're definitely seeing a movement in that direction. And we'll be there with the products and the expertise the end users need.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about safety, which is a big topic in this industry.
Sure.
We saw in May, we saw probably one of the most or the largest accidents in a while. If we look at the Orion accident, which happened with the new Deme vessel at the Liebherr facility, where the hook snapped, as an equipment manufacturer, how do you view an accident like this, and do you expect it to have a lasting impact on the market?
Yeah, so when we see any accident, our immediate concern is around the safety of the people. That's our number one focus, both internally and for our customers, is the safety of the team. Anytime there's an accident in lifting, and whether it's a heavy lift or not, one of the things, I'm relatively new to this industry, but one of the things I'm always curious about is people talk about heavy lift versus not heavy lift. You know, a 5-ton object that gets dropped is going to be just as deadly as a 5,000-ton object. So we don't really differentiate too much in our safety culture between the size of the lift. But anytime there's an accident, we take that as an opportunity to stand down and review everything about what we do, whether there was Crosby product involved or not. And thankfully, there hasn't been. We use it as an opportunity to double and triple down on our internal safety protocols. So with the Orion accident, we stood up a team to review everything that we do, particularly around anything that we don't manufacture, which is a very small portion. As I mentioned, we're very vertically integrated. But we really use that as an opportunity. I don't know what the ultimate root cause is. I think that investigation is still going on. One of the things that I read as I read the articles was there was a lot of handoffs in that process. So you had Liebherr that made the crane. They contracted with the company for the block. The company that contracted for the block then had the block made somewhere else. And I think one of the lasting impacts, I hope, is that everyone that's buying rigging hardware product really takes care with understanding who's actually making the product that they're buying. Not who's selling it to them necessarily, but where is it actually being manufactured? Because we see a lot of people putting their name on product that they don't manufacture, which is fine, but I think we owe it to the industry to be very transparent about that.
So you mentioned that in light of this accident, you reviewed your own protocols and processes. Are there any specific changes you made on the basis of that, or?
No, we didn't find anything. That process is still ongoing, and we do that as a regular basis. But I always find it instructive for the team when there's an accident, and it really focuses the mind on the criticality of the product that we make. And so we use that as a bit of a rallying cry to say, let's go back and double and triple check everything that we do and reinforce and recommit ourselves to the safety and the integrity of the product.
So if we look forward and you could increase one thing on safety just to make your entire operation better, what would that one thing be?
So internally, we spend a lot of time talking about and recording near misses, right? So when a safety event happens, it's already happened. And so we spend a lot of time recording and then preventing future accidents by looking at near misses. So something that happened that could have been dangerous, no one was injured, but there's something we can do to prevent it. So that's kind of internally one of the things we do. I think from an industry standpoint, I think training is critical, and we devote a tremendous amount of our time and effort to train in the industry. We've trained over 500,000 rigging professionals since we started training in the mid 1980s, and we continue to invest a lot of our profits to train people in the industry for no charge. So that would be one thing from an industry perspective. And the other one is this transparency that I talked about before. When you buy a piece of rigging hardware, I think you really have to ask yourself, who did I buy it from? Where was it made? Do I know where it came from? The brand on it is important, but equally important is the supply chain that's upstream of that brand, especially if there's any kind of an issue, right? Who is really standing behind that rigging hardware?
Okay, with that, we will conclude this interview. Robert, thank you for being the first guest on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to do so, and hopefully we can do it again soon. Great great publication as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, if you like this interview format, for the viewers at home, please let us know in the comments below. If we get enough positive feedback, we will surely do more of them. This was also a preview of what you can expect from our Project Cargo Summit, which will be held on the 23rd and 24th of September this year. They will be hosted as a free online event, and we will be talking about all the major topics and developments in the project cargo industry going on right now. For now, thank you for watching, and hopefully see you next time.